we have been scouting the 2023 rookie
Oh boy.
draft class,
Come on,
all
baby.
positions. We are looking at the wide receiver position today. We are going to tier rank our top 15 or so wide
Come
receivers
on.
for you, have some conversations about them, go back and forth. Do me a favor before we get to the video. Why don't you comment down below? Tell me the most underrated receiver in this year's draft class. I want to know who it is
Yes.
for you.
I have a
We're going
couple.
to talk about some of them today. Like the video, easy way for you to support us, and subscribe if you like Dynasty content because we're going to be bringing it all off season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why don't we start from tier 5 and we'll make our way up
Okay.
to tier 1. I
Sure.
think that's a better way to do things. For me, I have two players in this tier 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you stand, but those two players
I think
actually
we might have the
I
same two. We might have the same two
okay,
because
is it
I do have two plays in tier 5 as well. Um,
okay?
should we
For
just
me, let's just say who it is.
okay?
For me, I have Nebraska's Trey Palmer
Okay.
and I have Maryland's Rakim Jarrett.
Rakim Drat. Okay.
Okay, so we're in agreement here then. We can
Yes,
go to
we
tier
are.
4.
We are in
Okay,
agreement with Terry
should
and
we
then
quickly
Rakim.
talk about these players though? Is there anything that stood out to you about either Rakim Jarrett or Trey Palmer? I'll just say quickly something on Rakim Jarrett
Mm-hmm.
was a huge hype name in his recruiting class out of high school. He was, I believe, the number one recruit. Let me double check. He was the number one recruit in Maryland, and he was the second overall wide receiver recruit in the country. A lot of Debo Samuel recruits out of high school, 5-star guy. He wanted to stay at Maryland because I believe he originally committed to, I think it was LSU, if I'm not mistaken, which would have been
Rakim.
a good move for him. Yeah.
I think he had. I think if I'm not mistaken, he had multiple offers to a lot of schools, but then he
Yeah.
decided to stay home.
Yeah.
I actually have it written down actually. So yeah, it was LSU. He had offers
Okay.
from the top schools, LSU. That's what I put down. So yeah.
Yeah, so he did originally commit there, and then he wanted to stay home at Maryland, so
Mm-hmm.
he recommitted to Maryland, which again we talked about this earlier. That's awesome that he wanted to do that, but it definitely would have hurt his career
100%.
and hurts his chances now in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can see a little bit of flashes of Debo. I think the issue is that there's a ton of drops. The production wasn't there. He had the fourth highest drop rate of any
Yep.
wide receiver in college football who had a minimum of 55 targets. So like there's definitely clearly athleticism, but there's just some fundamental things that I wasn't loving.
Yeah.
Trey Palmer, you I think are maybe a little bit higher on him than me. Did you want to speak on him?
Yeah. Trey Palmer is somebody that I really like. He's one thing you kind of saw in his film immediately that he was a punt returner, kick returner, and he had the speed to kind of make people miss in short areas, especially when he was doing those things. But all the things that he has and acquires, I actually really like. I think he does have a drop problem, a drop issue
Sure.
as well. But I think for me is the overall speed that he has and the ability to automatically contribute to an NFL team on the field right now. I'm not saying that he is going to be a fantasy relevant player, but I
Sure.
think maybe if he can get on the team, be special teams, maybe he can somehow work his way into the slot and then
Right.
become somebody that is okay. Well, he had a couple of catches. He had a touchdown here. I think he can kind
Sure.
of excel his way up. I think there is more of a pathway for Trey Palmer to move himself up in the NFL than anything. But I mean, it wasn't tremendous traits. He was another guy that was also from LSU and then transferred to Nebraska because he
Yeah.
was the punt
Never a
returner, kick
good sign.
returner from LSU. So there was opportunity. He was a 4-star recruit, and he
Yeah.
has played in a high, I guess you can say, high-powered offense. I'm not sure if LSU would be technically be considered that anymore. Um,
Right.
but I think there is opportunity for him. I think he could potentially be a wide receiver in the NFL if he does get the opportunity. But it's all about opportunity for obviously these guys at the bottom. Are they going to get the opportunity to show
Sure.
themselves in the NFL?
Yeah, I'm just looking over my scouting notes, and some of the things I mentioned was there just wasn't a part of his game that is elite that stood out that would separate him. I felt like the ceiling was a little
Yeah.
bit low. Deep ball, burner speed, stretch the field type of guy, wide receiver 3 on a team, special teams, probably around 5 to 7 draft pick. And
Correct.
my comps for him was like ceiling, I'm looking like a Darius Slayton, Robbie Anderson type of player, and the
Hmm.
floor like a John Brown. So, again, I see the athleticism, but I think when you're going from college football to the NFL, there has to be those elite traits that make you stand out. So,
Yeah.
my tier 4 is the tier that I have the most amount of players in. I
Okay.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So
Okay.
at the end of this tier, I have Cedric Tillman.
Are we on the same page there? Okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna name and you tell me, oh, good or not. Okay.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
I have Marvin Mims.
No,
You have him higher than that.
I actually have him higher. Yes, I do.
Okay, well, we will have a conversation about him then.
Mm-hmm.
I have Jalen Hyatt here, which you probably don't. I'm very low on Jalen Hyatt.
I actually have Jalen Hyatt in this tier
Okay,
as well.
I'm
Yes.
glad we're on the same page because we're definitely gonna need to talk about that.
Okay.
I am so confused about the hype. Like I get it, but
Mm-hmm.
anyone who scouts is gonna watch Jalen Hyatt. Be like, this
100%.
is
Yeah. Like,
wait,
whoa.
no way.
Think about
This is
whoa,
not a
this
first
guy
round
went
wide receiver.
crazy. Yeah.
I have Parker Washington here.
No, I'm
You have him higher.
I'm having him higher. Correct.
Okay. I have Zay Flowers,
I do have Zay Flowers here.
which I like Zay Flowers. And then I have at the beginning of this tier Rome Odunze.
Rams Dunze. Yes. Okay. So there's only one person I have in this tier that you don't have, and he's at the very top of this tier, and that's Rashid Rice.
Rasheed Rice. Okay.
Mhm. But other
So
than that,
why
I
don't we
think,
compromise then? Because I want to have Rasheed Rice in our tier 3 because I really like him.
okay,
And then so we'll compromise there, and then I'll let you choose one of these players to keep in tier 3 between Marvin Mims and Parker Washington.
I would keep Parker.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I think he has a much higher ceiling.
I would keep Parker there. He is
Okay,
Yeah, he is.
so why don't we talk about some of these players then?
Mm-hmm.
First with Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, let's talk about the
And
Tennessee.
We're just gonna go
boys.
through these players,
Mhm.
discuss them. We don't want to get too in depth, but just discuss them and kind of clarify our thoughts or any points of difference. So Cedric Tillman, what stood out for you about Cedric?
Honestly, there wasn't much. I mean, he does have the size and he does have like that
Yeah.
big body ability. But there wasn't anything that really made me excited about his play personally. I think the production was there in his sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken, and then kind of
Sure.
went down.
Well, he had the production this year,
Yeah,
but the injury is
the injury, exactly. The injury is kind of
Kept
what hindered him, which kind of sucked. But I kind of also looked back in 2021 when wanted to see the full production as well.
Sure.
But I think for me overall, I'm not necessarily in love with it. I think he does have a decent contested catch ability as well. I mean, he is a big guy, and he's up there. But for me, it's just I don't think he's anything. He's not going to come into the league
tough, isn't
and
it?
be like okay, we have a big body receiver. Let's get him into the works. They're just going to be like, he's going to compete. He's going to have to compete for a spot in a starting spot in the league. And I think that's something that it's going to be
Sure.
tough for him.
Yeah, when scouting Tillman, I wrote he has some very clear strengths and weaknesses, and I think the weaknesses outweigh the strengths for me. Size in a class that doesn't have a lot of big body guys, he has that. He's 6'3", 215, ideal for outside wide receiver, and I think he's a very good route runner. In fact, it's my favorite trait of his.
Of him? Okay.
Good technique, good footwork off the line of scrimmage. A lot of these guys that we're scouting, it's mostly free releases, which is not what they will see in the NFL. It's mostly zone coverages. But specifically, I watched this year's Tennessee-Georgia game where Cedric Tillman faced a ton of press coverage versus Keely Ringo, which for some people, he's the cornerback one in this year's class.
And he was
really good against Keely.
He was fighting, bro.
It wasn't his speed. It wasn't his burst. It wasn't his acceleration. It was all technique as a route runner. He was beating him off the line. Sorry. And
False.
it wasn't really athleticism. It wasn't strength. It wasn't burst. It was technicality as a route runner. So I like that. And I like that we have on film him beating one of the class's best cornerbacks. But the weaknesses are so clear. There's not much burst. There's not long run speed. He's actually atrocious after the catch. Okay. Yards after the catch per reception this year, 2.9. That is a terrible number.
Yeah.
When you look at wide receivers in college football who had a minimum of 55 targets, he ranks 209th of 233 wide receivers. Not twitchy, not elusive, doesn't have the stop-start ability that you want. No lateral quickness really, and he's not very versatile. Like he's probably going to be an outside Z wide receiver. So, yeah. That's why he was so low for me. I know a lot of people like him. When I look at like a comp, I'm looking at like a Nico Collins type played
Okay.
probably in the NFL. Like, and I see Nico as like a wide receiver 3 on an NFL team. So hard to see fantasy value coming from that with his weaknesses.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's move on to Jalen Hyatt. So
Eh,
Jalen Hyatt is an interesting one.
he is.
Again,
He is.
did you know? I saw this a couple weeks ago. Mel Kiper has Jalen Hyatt as his wide receiver 2,
Mel Kiper.
which
Who the hell
is
is Mel Kiper?
ridiculous, man. It's actually ridiculous. Look, I'll just quickly say my piece on him. To me, he's a very simple player. He wins with speed, over the top, and that helps him underneath on routes because he has to have a cushion from defensive backs. He does not possess elite or even above average traits as a route runner. After the catch, open field elusiveness. In short, his game feels very limited to me. Like when I look at what he could be in the NFL, it's like a deep threat. I'm thinking MVS. I'm thinking Will Fuller. I'm thinking Philip Dorsett. But
Right. Mhm.
I don't see him being someone who's like gets 7 to 8 catches a game. It's like you throw the ball to him about 5 times a game. He maybe catches 3 of them, and maybe he goes for a touchdown with his speed. But at best, he's Will Fuller. At worst, he's MVS. I just don't see any sort of fantasy upside where I'm like screaming like we have to have this guy on our fantasy team. And
100%.
And I think you might have sent it on me Twitter. Someone tagged me on this on Twitter. There was I believe, one reception he had versus press coverage the entire year. He had a lot of free releases. That's not going to be the case in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Most of his production came off broken plays where he was just wide open. It's just tough to. There's not much technique there.
It's tough. It's tough to do that, and that's one thing I was going to say because that's one thing I did see. You know, you watch this film, you watch film of players, and you're trying to see their technique, their releases, and everything, and then you can go watch highlights, which are very like focused on their best plays. His best plays are like he's just down the field. Like, are there any contested catches? Is there a best play where, like, he broke someone off the line of scrimmage and he just made an incredible slant play or, like, a spin move? Like, what was it? There was no, like, depth in his gameplay, in his film, to where it was like, okay, the talent, the speed is there, but does he have the ability to kind of break off the line? Does he get bullied on the line? Does he, how does he handle those things? And I'm not necessarily sure. Once again, we saw the depth of his game moving forward, but I think you hit everything on the head, and that's exactly what I said. A lot of his
sorry, go ahead.
No, a lot of his production came off of blown coverages. Those yarders came off of blown coverages. I just want to see more. Can he handle the press in the NFL? Can he go out? Can he go up and contest the catch? Can he make can he create separation, a significant separation in a slant route with the speed? I mean, which I think we've seen a little bit of, but still a lot of blown coverages, which I was like, I just want to see more like technique than just Jalen Hyatt's open,
exactly.
Yeah,
no, I 100% agree. And his contested catch rate is actually pretty good at 60% this year. Mm-hmm. But I think the context is important because he only had 5 of those.
Exactly.
So, 3 of 5 isn't a very big sample size. But yeah, you're 100% right. I think he was the product of a good offense, a good system, and blown coverages. And this is why I'm blown away that someone like Mel Kiper, like who is Mel Kiper anyway, right? But I'm blown away that someone like Mel Kiper can have him as his wide receiver too. Anyone who's a film person, they put on Jalen Hyatt. I could be wrong, like because we all see different things in film. But you put on Jalen Hyatt and you're like, okay, when is he gonna show me technique? When is he gonna show me route? I get the speed. And the first 7 touchdowns I watched on film were broken coverages. free releases, over the top speed. I mean, yeah, I'm very, very low on him. Again, MVS is the kind of player I see. MVS Will Fuller.
No, for sure.
Okay, next we have Zay Flowers.
Zay.
I really like Zay Flowers. Honestly, I want to put Zay higher than this. Great speed. I think that's probably one of his best traits is his speed. I wouldn't say it's elite, but I wouldn't say like Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson were elite speed either. But I would put him kind of in that kind of speed, like that high 4.3s. Very good after the catch, I would say. Specifically, his IQ. I feel like he always knows how to use a defender's momentum against them, which at the point of the catch where you're transitioning from a receiver to a runner, he has very good IQ to see the field and know how to get the most out of the yardage. Great versatility. in college at least, they lined him up 66% out wide and
Yep.
32% in the slot. And the production was there. His career college dominator rating is 36.1%. 35% is like elite.
Yeah,
That is
it was
an
crazy
elite
what he got.
number. So there's a couple things I don't like. The drops, very high drop percentage. Size, could only be a slot receiver in the NFL. And I
Yep.
think I have some unknowns versus press coverage because we didn't see it a lot. So those three things were the reason I couldn't have him any higher than this. But my comp for him was Eddie Royal, which I thought was really perfect. Honestly, when I watched Eddie Royal, I rewatched Eddie Royal, and I was like, this is Eddie Royal.
Yeah.
Eddie Royal, Rondell Moore, KJ Hamler, Jamison Crowder type vibe.
Yeah, and that was my comp, Rondell Moore. And when I was watching him, I got so much influence from the outside world before I saw Zay Flowers, Zay Flower, because it was just all over Twitter of like how fast he was and how everyone likes him, and I was like, okay, like I'm excited to watch him. I went to watch him and I was like, well, all he has, not that all he has, but his clear ability is speed, right? And which I really like, but at the same time, I think it just puts him in a box. And I feel like so many NFL wide receivers that have speed, but don't necessarily have anything. Not that he doesn't have anything else, but nothing else really shines in my perspective on Zay. It's like, okay, what is there anything else besides the speed? Like, is there something else that I really love? And one thing I said, and maybe I'm wrong, I was like, to sum up the overall package, the package looks good on film. Everything that he can show and bring on film is phenomenal. His versatility will give NFL coordinators like a field day, and they're gonna have fun to kind of put him everywhere. And he can be a punt returner, a kick returner. He can be a slot receiver. He can be on the outside and have speed and just duck out. But like, is that all? Like, when I say is that all, are they really gonna give him the opportunity with the size? And
size is a big concern.
I'm kind of lost there, and I want to like him, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to be fantasy relevant. And that's what I look at, prospects, can they also be fantasy relevant? Are they going to be fantasy relevant? Because we kind of want to bring that out to you before they are fantasy relevant, right?
Yeah.
So I like him, but
he's a name that I think you will
there.
see people on two sides of the coin. I mean, people certainly would have him higher than I have him. That's certainly going to be the case for some people. Right now, he's my wide receiver 9 in the class. But right. I like his game. I think one thing that particularly stood out to me was the route running. It's not that it was bad. I just don't think his route tree is where it needs to be to have those chances on the outside. So we'll see. Next we have Rome Odunze, who I would have at the beginning of this, and I actually would have Marvin Mims at the end. Personally, we'll talk about these two players.
Okay.
Let's start with Rome.
Romeo.
It's actually Rome.
I know. Yeah. I just call him Romeo. I don't know.
It's going to be a little bit confusing because most people's name. I've never seen someone called Rome, but Rome was really surprising to me. I really enjoyed watching this film. I had no really expectations going in. I know some people in our community were like, watch Rome, but I didn't really have any thought on him. I had no expectations. 4-star recruit out of high school from Las Vegas, Nevada. Played at Bishop Gorman High School, which if you've watched QB1, you know what that is.
Yep.
In 2022, he had a new scheme and offensive cast, which I think definitely helped his growth. But for me, I'll say some of the good things I think he's actually a very good route runner.
100%.
And he's continually improving as a route runner. So much upside in this area, which, again, for me, I think one of probably, if not the most important aspects of a wide receiver outside of athleticism is can you run routes well and can you get separation? I think that's probably the biggest factor for me when I'm scouting, and he shows real signs of a potential star as a route runner.
Yeah. Good
release off the line of scrimmage, sudden body fakes that you want to see on the break point of routes, very good manipulator. With the right coach, I think he could be an elite route runner in the NFL. He's certainly not there right now as a prospect, but he shows signs of being able to develop as one of those players. Pretty good after the catch. I wouldn't say he creates a lot for himself, but I would say, whatever the defenders or whatever the blockers give him, he's able to use well and use his speed.
100%.
Good size. For me, not a very good As far as like receiver of the ball, like too many body catches, not enough hand catches. We want to see more hand catches. Contested catch rate was pretty bad at
Yeah, it's pretty
25%.
low. Yeah.
I mean, that's 211th of 242 wide receivers this year in college football who had a minimum of 55 targets. So, and he saw a good amount of opportunities at 16. So it's kind of like the nature of the game. Like we talked about Jalen Hyatt, high contested catch rate, low amount of targets.
Right.
We're talking about Rome, a lot of contested catch opportunities, low percentage.
Low.
So it's kind of like, where do you meet in the middle there? But you certainly would want him to be more than 25%.
Exactly.
At his size.
And just to,
and at 6'3", 201, you would want to see better contested catch ability.
Yeah, just to be clear as well, I think a lot of people, I'm not sure, I mean, I'm pretty sure you do, but I'm not sure if people that are out there understand that the contested catches aren't necessarily, okay, kind of like Mike Williams, where he goes down the field and he's always catching the ball. Like, it's also in slant routes, really press coverage where like they're trying to knock the ball out of their hand. Yeah, any contact that is I guess an obstruction to try to catch the ball, which is a contested catch, right? So just want to make that clear. But I actually really like Rome Odunze. Another cool thing I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, he had so many offers to so many different schools. He could have gone, Tennessee, Florida, Miami, Oklahoma, Alabama. Like there was so many opportunities. So he was very sought after, and he did get offers, but he commits to Washington, which I really like. There is something like, I think you nailed the nail on the head with everything that you said. One thing that I really liked about him is his short area quickness, areas that he can be a threat anywhere. I think he could be a good wide receiver where he can be the guy, or he can really just be a number two and contribute. And I think the thing is he's in the between. And I think that's what can make him so successful, is that like he can be the superstar or he can be the wide receiver too that is going to complement him. Right. Sure. I guess it's kind of like
he has that superstar ceiling, but he also has a safe floor, I would say.
Exactly. I'm not comparing him to this, but I think the situation that he could go into is like what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are. They're both superstars, but like Tyreek is clearly number one with the production and fantasy numbers, and then Jalen or Waddle is there as well, but he's just like number two on paper. That's how I'm kind of seeing it.
You might get some interesting comments from using those two names.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard, but I'm not saying they're not number ones. I'm saying like just the area that he's like in between there. Yeah. Anyways,
that's high praise to put him in that. I know you're not comparing them as players. You're saying as a situation.
I think the production. I think he can go into production like that, and that is high praise. And I think the production where he can go in and get targets and be the number one guy or the number two guy, it could be Romeo.
I think that there's potential for that, but I would say it's years away. It won't be instant into an offense.
I think it all depends on situation. If the situation has to be right, of course.
My pro comp for him is, and this might sound like boring, but think of this year's version of this player, Zay Jones. I see a lot of Zay Jones in this game, which I think could be, advantageous. Think about if Zay Jones was a rookie right now, guys. He would be like a top 20 Dynasty wide receiver right now based off what he did this year.
Yeah.
Zay Jones in 2022, a young Devontae Parker. Like I kind of see some similarities in their games. I'm a big Rome guy. There are certain wide receivers that you scout each year and you're like, ooh, there's something about that guy. There's something about that guy that could be special. He could be sleeper status special. All right, Marvin Mims. I'll let you kind of lead the way here. Actually, let me just quickly say my piece.
Okay.
Because it's pretty. This is pretty simple for me. Lots of things I don't like. Route running, I didn't see much technique. If it's not a fade or a go, it seems pretty rounded off. I don't see those crispy, like decisive cuts, manipulation. Route tree looks pretty simplified for me. Did not put up big production, even though he was clearly the number one. In fact, he averaged, I think, 4.3 receptions a game in 2022 as the guy. And the year before that, 2.5 receptions per game. Yards at the catch doesn't feel like he's very elite in that area. His size, I feel like he's going to be limited to a slot role at, what is he, 5'11" at 184.
Yep.
So those are my concerns. I like the speed. I like the ball skills. Yep. Very good ball skills for his size. But I am very concerned. I see like a Isaiah McKenzie, Kiki QT, Braxton Berrios type player.
Okay, yeah. Marvin Mims is somebody that I really like, and it's because I think the way the NFL is shaping, I think they like a body like him and everything that's happening. Yeah, so he is a slot receiver. His size is not going to jump out of film, but I personally think that he has an amazing contested catch ability.
He
Obviously,
does.
you know, it was there for him, and
He
he
does.
has really strong hands that he can pluck out of the air. He can pluck the ball out, and like, excuse me, he just has strong contested catch hands, which is really really good for somebody that's in the slot that's going to be facing a lot of pressure, especially with his size. He just has strong hands to where like if someone's on press, it's just felt like he's always catching it. And obviously that's exaggeration, but it just felt that way.
Well, he
Um,
had 8 contested catch opportunities. He caught 4 of them, 50%, which is a very good mark.
yeah, and I like that, and that's okay. It's once again not gonna. It's just the hands that's really good. The route running, I said it was decent route running. I think there was a slot ability. He can gain separation in the middle. I think he does have limited in the sense of where he's on the outside, where he
Sure.
did go on the outside, and I felt like he was only streaking. He was only streaking, or it was a really quick, let's say like a slant or post route, you can say. But I think the slot area felt a little bit better for me, where he did have technically less percentage on the field with 30% in the slot area than 68, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's something special for him. I think a lot of
Sure.
teams like the ability, and I think a lot of teams love the strength, the toughness, the competitiveness that he does bring. And I think that's what makes him stand out, right?
Mhm.
Somebody that can be tough, somebody that can play for the win, that is going to always catch the ball and be a reliable guy. And mind you, he has Spencer Rattler and Dylan
Sure.
Gabriel. I personally don't even know who Dylan Gabriel is. I looked him up. It wasn't somebody
Yeah.
special. He was doing this with somebody that was very inaccurate, very inconsistent in trying to get him the ball, specifically Spencer Rattler. Dylan was a little bit different. I don't really know much of his game, but Spencer Rattler is someone that obviously that was
Yeah.
23 prospect, or potentially is still, or maybe not. I don't even know if he declared. But I think there is a
Sure.
lot of aspects where he could improve for sure. Obviously his size is not the best. I think the yak wasn't amazing for me. His yak percentage is only 40%. So I don't know if you did this, but it was 40% of his total yardage. I like Marvin Mims, and I think he could 100% contribute into an NFL team. Maybe not right away, but I think he could develop into something special.
Yeah, he's one of those names where I am probably significantly lower than the rest.
Hmm.
I think even from a fantasy perspective, the last thing I'll say is, you're looking at a player who has never averaged more than 5 receptions a game. Because I've seen a lot of Tyler Lockett comps for him, and I guess that's why I want to say it. I've seen a lot of people using Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett had huge production in K State,
For sure.
massive numbers. And we're talking about Marvin Mims, who in his best year averaged 4.3 receptions a game. In 2021, 2.5 receptions per game. And I'm just struggling to see a
Right.
scenario with the limitations in size, uh,
And
after the catch, route
right.
runner, where he goes into the NFL and is like better than a 4 reception per game type guy. That's what I kind of see him as.
And I think that's
So
why I've kind of I didn't give him grace. Like I didn't give him more or less points because of who his quarterback was. But I think that played a huge significant
I
part
agree.
of how I
It did.
thought of him,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I think a lot of people may feel the same way, because Spencer Rattler is somebody that has an immense talent, but is so inconsistent when it comes down
Sure.
to fundamentals. And it was like, well, was he putting Marvin in the best position possible? What if Marvin was
Right.
on a different team? Like
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. I think being the one on your team though and having those numbers is tough.
for
I
sure,
know I know
for
it was a
sure.
tough situation. I agree. Like we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. The
Right.
entire organization, like the entire program changed. But what's your comp for him then? I know you're a little bit higher on him. I'm
Sorry,
curious what your comp would be for him.
I closed it.
For me, again, Isaiah McKenzie, Braxton Berrios, Kiki QT. Maybe I'm a little bit too harsh, but again, just not someone I was overly
I put
impressed with.
I put I put a taller Elijah Moore as his ceiling.
Okay, all right,
You know,
which is still unknown, but
yeah,
I
it's
can see
still
it.
unknown, but I think the potential that I saw in Elijah Moore is kind of the same thing I see in Marvin.
Hmm.
Um, so
Okay, so in tier 3, we had to agree to add Parker Washington, who I had in tier 4, and Rasheed Rice, who you had in tier 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have those guys at the back half. I have three other players here, which is Josh Downs.
In tier
Um,
3, okay.
I have him in tier 3. I have Xavier Hutchinson in tier 3, right ahead of him, and then I have Kayshon Boutte at the head of this tier 3. So I have. Do you have anyone else in that tier 3 that's not listed?
No. So the only person I don't have in tier 3 is Josh Downs. Josh Downs. He's in my tier 2.
He's in your tier 2. Okay,
Mhm.
wow. So he's at the end of my tier 3.
He is at the end of my tier 2, by the way. He's at the end of
He's
your
at the
tier 3.
end?
He's at the end of my tier 2. Gosh, we're really high. We're really different on there.
Yeah, we're different on Downs. Well, why don't we leave him here at the beginning of it? And this video is getting a little bit long. So Parker Washington, let's just give like a very quick outlook on Parker Washington.
sure.
I'll talk. Actually, you go ahead and talk about him.
No, yeah.
You had him higher.
I kind of gave you my little snippet that I put in my notes. I said he's a do-it-all guy with ability to be a dog, versatility, strength, vertical speed, a good hand, something that Parker can take to the next level. In my personal opinion, I think he could be a superstar if he has the opportunity. Obviously, there's so many things he has to do right, and so many things he can correct. But I think the ability is there for Parker Washington. Great contested catch, 71% contested catch. Obviously, he only caught 5 out of those 7.
He has great,
but he has really, really good hands. And one thing that I saw that reminded me of, not saying I'm not comparing him, but he has like a move where he does like, he kind of, when he catches the ball, he kind of steps out, kind of like what OBJ used to do. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Okay.
I don't know. It just looked cool and I liked it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think with Parker, I struggled so much to get a comp for him because he is is it 5'10", 5'11", but also 215. He's like a running back.
Exactly.
Frame. It's so strange. What was your comp?
He was moving pretty fast. Let me see. I didn't really have a comp.
I have some concerns around speed, but he's a pretty good route runner.
I didn't have a comp.
I like him. He was like one of my sleepers, but just not as high as you.
Okay.
What was your comp?
I didn't have a comp for him. It was also difficult because there's no small stocky dudes like stocky wide receivers.
It's not at that size. It's so strange. He's like it's you guys let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, if you have
All right, I'll quickly go over Rasheed Rice. I think he's going to be everyone's sleeper, everyone's darling, and I get it. I really, really like Rasheed Rice. In fact, he is my wide receiver 6 in this year's class as of right now. 4 things I really love about him: size, versatility, contested catchability, and his yards after the catch game. 6'3", 206, plays with a ton of strength, has really like that bulldog type mentality.
Yep.
Versatility. He played over 90% in the slot as a junior, and then had an even bigger breakout season as a senior where he played 82.5% out wide, can be a weapon on either end of the field. Contested catchability, displays great body control in one-on-one scenarios, can track down the ball well, knows right when to jump to put him in the best scenario to make those contested catches, and does a great job fighting off defenders as well through routes. Some things that concern me: the drop rate, 9.4%, very high, and the route tree is going to need to expand. I don't have a floor for him, so understand that the floor is much lower than the 2 players I'm about to say. But my ceiling for him is kind of like a Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin. And keep in mind, these aren't wide receivers who came out early. These aren't wide receivers who were first-round talents. These are guys who were second, third-round picks in the NFL, and they developed into really, really good players. So Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, kind of my comp there. The floor, much, much lower. I just couldn't find a good floor for him, but I'm a big fan of Rasheed Rice, and coming out a little bit old at 22 years old, I believe, but I love the raw athlete that you are getting in Rasheed Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why don't you talk about Josh Downs then? You're a little bit higher than I am on Josh Downs, and I'll take people through Xavier Hutchinson because I'm a big fan of Xavier Hutchinson. So I have Josh Downs as my wide receiver 7. Okay. You have him as your wide receiver what?
My wide receiver 4 currently.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, Josh Downs is definitely a special. Like, it's really hard for me. But anyways, let me just explain. 5'10", 175, 21, out of Georgia. Had a really good career in college.
Out of North Carolina.
Out of North Carolina, sorry. But when I say out of Georgia, he was from Georgia.
Okay, my bad.
Excuse me, yeah. Look, there's a lot of opportunity. I think Josh Jones has really good hands, in my opinion. Right? I think
He does.
he's an unofficial 5'11", and he has the 11th contested catch rate with minimum of 55 targets. Obviously, I didn't get how many players in total, but he was there. Right?
That would be around 240 or so.
Yeah. So
From my
one thing I
remembrance.
thought that was really interesting is the receiving targets of yards of 20 plus yards. He caught 6 out of 7 targets of 20 yards. And these are contested catches, mind you. He had a 72% contested catch rate. He caught 18 out of 17. And it wasn't contested catch rates where it was behind the line of scrimmage, because that was the lowest, right? Reception targets or reception targets of yards of, from 0 to 9 yards, where he caught 3 out of 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a 3 out of 7. Kind of. Maybe I have that wrong in my notes. But anyways, I think he has a really good contested catch rate, in my personal opinion, for a guy that's 5'11", a guy that can stretch. He plays with big body frame, which I really like. I think the production is there, especially with multiple quarterbacks. Where if he does go on a team that is going to be going to a quarterback carousel, I think that really helps his production as well, going into, or his ability to go into the NFL. And I think for me, it's just everything that he has: the speed, the contested catch ability, the production, the ability to be versatile as well on the field. If I'm not mistaken, he was out wide for 14% and on the slot for 82%. So I do believe he does have the ability to be back and forth. And a cool fun fact, he's Josh Dobbs' cousin. I don't know if you know that. I found that out. Josh Dobbs' cousin. But I think he is a good slot receiver. I think a lot of teams are going to love him. I think he's a high second round pick, and he's going to contribute. And my comp for him, I'm not saying he is this person. Or actually, there was 2 comps. I have a Brandon Cooks, and I also have a somewhat similar Amon-Ra.
Okay.
That's how I'm seeing it.
Right. Yeah, no, he's interesting to me. I think I might be too low on him, but I have to trust my scouting.
Sure.
It's tough. And by the way, another fun fact, his father was actually a NFL running back.
Yes.
And his brother is currently one of the top safeties in the high school recruiting class of 2023. I agree with the good things. I'll just say after the catch, I think is where I was let down a little bit by him, because I didn't see this kind of explosive player where he's creating for himself as much as some of the other guys in the class.
Mm-hmm.
But I might be too hard on him. I will say he is, because people use Tyler Lockett so much, he is the actually only undersized guy in this class that I feel comfortable putting that comp on, the Tyler Lockett comp, because he has that kind of production on North Carolina. He has had huge production, pretty much for his whole collegiate career. Broke out at 19, so I might be too low on him.
One thing on the Yak before you move on to your next point, I want to say was that I looked back in 2021, he had a 55.8% yards after the catch rate, where it dropped this year to 36.4. So maybe, and I did put this in my notes, I was like, maybe it was an example of quarterback play, change of quarterback play and scheme.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave him a little bit of a tap on the shoulder or like a tap on the hand regarding that area. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, no, I could be too low on him. I just have to kind of trust my initial scouting there. And just like you said earlier, like, we really want to be careful not to let outside people influence me, because
100%.
Everyone's telling me I'm too low on him. I'm like, I might be. I'll quickly talk about Xavier Hutchinson, who I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. We'll have real quickly, because we're getting a little bit deep into the video, but 3-star recruit. Quick background on him. Spent a couple years at JUCO before going to Iowa State. He holds the Iowa State single season record for receptions. He was a dual sport athlete in high school. There are certain players that you watch on film and you're instantly like, I love this player. I really think this guy could be special. And I'm glad that no one's really talking about him just yet. 6'3", 205. Love the size. He's going to be declaring a little bit late at 22 years old. Again, keep in mind, guys, he had a late start into college football, D1 college football. So that's something that you can hold against him. I'm going to try not to, because I've already seen huge strides in his game from his first year at Iowa State to now. But watching him, it kind of scares me, because again, like, I'm so high on this player. I'm like, should I really trust this grade right now?
I think it's great. I mean, I have him my number 5. You have him what, 4?
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have him at 5 as well.
Oh,
But
okay. So we're on par.
he was my 4 before Boutte declared again.
Okay.
But on him, I think he's a very good route runner.
Mhm.
That instantly stood out to me. Has those clean, quick cuts at the break point, great first step off the line of scrimmage, can lull a defensive back to sleep, and then use that manipulation, those body fakes, those head fakes. Multiple times on film, you're watching Xavier, and the defender is genuinely confused about where he's going next. And that is a sign of such respect. Great hands and contested catchability, very special body control. Tons of overthrows and underthrows. Bad quarterback play this year,
Right.
but that led to really good highlights, like of him making these incredible catches and contorting his body. Great size, like I said. I like the speed. I don't think it's elite, but I think it's very good game speed. The things that are going to hold him back is, again, he was a JUCO player, late declare out of into the draft. But for me, when I look at him, I see a combination of a Terry McLaurin and an Adam Thielen. Like these two players, you combine their games together, and Adam Thielen as a potential really good route runner. Terry McLaurin as that great contested guy with great body control. And the floor, I would say Tyler Boyd, Paris Campbell type player. I really like Xavier Hutchinson. I'm in love with him. He is pretty versatile as well. Played 70% out wide this year, 30% in the slot.
Yeah.
So he can kind of line up all over the place. And my controversial take for him, which a lot of people might agree, they might disagree. I fully, wholeheartedly believe that if Xavier Hutchinson was 2 years younger and he declared, or he went into like a D1 program 2 years younger, let's say he went to Ohio State or Alabama and he was 2 years younger, he would be a top 20 pick in this year's draft. Like I don't have any doubts based off of his skill sets, based off of what I've seen on film. But obviously, those are the things that are going to hold him back. JUCO, he's a little bit older. Why did he have to go through JUCO? So I love him. I'm obsessed with Xavier Hutchinson, and I think I'm going to have a lot of him. I'm hoping that the NFL sees what I see and he gets late second, early third round draft capital. Because if he ends up being like a fifth round pick, you have to adjust. Like you can't just go in blind. So yeah, I really really like him. Did you enjoy his game as well?
I definitely enjoyed him. I think he is somebody really special, and I said I think he could be an immediate threat to an NFL team. He has the size, strength, abilities to be a 2X wide receiver, something that every team wants. And I even said there's not much to work on, like not much outside of, in my opinion, his route running and technically speed that he needs to work on. Because I didn't really love the speed. I thought he felt a little bit sluggish at times, and creating space. And I think it's kind of hard when you're 6'3", 200-something pounds, right? So it's a little bit different, and everyone's expectation is different. But I think there's no doubt he can be a successful wide receiver in the NFL. It's just where and when that's going to be. I think he can be an X or Y receiver, X or Y, like meaning he can be a one,
Agreed.
a true one, or he can be a very complimentary wide receiver too as well, like maybe like the production of a Mike Williams. I think he could potentially have, but he can also have the production of the Keenan Allen, right? Like I think it can be both ways. My comp was Cortland Sutton. I think the size and the ability is kind of the way I saw him. I think he's a little bit shorter than Cortland, if I'm not mistaken, but that's how I saw it. I think he's big body, contested catch guy, great at space. And I really do like Xavier Hutchinson, like you, for sure.
Yeah, same. All right, Kayshon Boutte at the top. I think let's just quickly summarize Kayshon Boutte because I think we could have a whole video on him.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be a very interesting wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Question marks around why he decided to say he was going to return and then went to the NFL.
Yeah.
Talks about some sex party that happened, disagreements with
a good old
coach.
time.
I don't know what happened, okay? I still see the first round talent. I don't think he's drafted in the first round. Maybe he goes to the Cowboys at the end. Like that wouldn't surprise me in the first round.
100%.
I think that could really happen.
100%.
But you see the superstar athlete. You see the Deebo Samuel comps. You see the Treylon Burks comps. The floor of like the Golden Tate is where I'm looking at. I think he's a strong player, strong on the open field. Obviously, very weird year. Got outplayed by Malik Neighbors, and didn't have a very good attitude. Didn't show a lot of leadership.
And
so
I think
there's
that's the
clear
thing.
question marks, but purely based off of the athleticism alone, you have to have him this high, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. The athleticism is there. Yeah. I think my biggest factor for him is, does he want to play? It doesn't.
Yeah.
it's not that does he want to play? He has the ability to play and be it, but what happens if he doesn't get the production like he didn't get this
Right.
year and he got upset? What is he going to do on an NFL team? Right? Is he really going to respond well and be like, I'm a team player? Think of kind of what Kenny G did this year. Like, he got upset, but he was a team player. He didn't say much. He probably held his tongue, and he's making a lot of money. Obviously, maybe that's why he held his tongue, but he was on the bench.
What you gonna say, bro?
Yeah, but like, I just think, does he want to be there for his team? Is he going to be a team player? Is he going to bring more than just
that's one of those things,
the physical traits?
You can't really quantify that. And that's the problem.
And that's the problem. You know, I mean, he could be, and I said he could be a star like his former teammates, Jefferson and Jamar. You know, he could be there if he wants to be there. Does he want to be there?
I think I'm going to have a lot of Butte in drafts, personally, just to take a chance on that kind of talent. I really, really like the talent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In my tier 2, I have one player. Do you have one player or do you have two?
I have two, which is Josh Jones, technically.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna put Josh down to the beginning of this for you. Then
Mm-hmm.
I would have Butte ahead of him. But for me, Jordan Addison is the player I have as my tier 2.
Yeah, that's
He's the one. He's there alone for me. I understand you have Josh Downs with him. That's pretty high praise for Downs. I was not disappointed by Addison's film. I was just a little bit let down by certain aspects of it. I think when you look at route running, he's like up there with the Olaves, with the Wilsons as a route runner. But his strength and size is a really big issue when it comes to route running. We saw a lot of press coverage. At least I was able to watch a lot of press coverage.
Mm-hmm.
He struggles against press. He struggles with the hand fighting. He doesn't have that strength to kind of get through the route. I saw a lot of routes where he just kind of the defender just shut him down at the line of scrimmage. And that's quite concerning. I would say also one of my biggest concerns is his yak ability. I felt in the open field let down quite a lot. His burst and speed are good, but he's not very elusive. He doesn't have very good hesitations or stop-start ability in the open field. He does on routes, which is weird. Doesn't have like a calling card to extend a play, like a juke, a hesitation, like a spin move. It's just like if you get your hands on him in the open field, he's likely falling down.
Yeah, I agree.
And then as a contested catcher, it's rough. 22.2% contested catch rate this year, which is 206th. That's rough. That is really bad.
No,
so
for sure.
Overall, I think the two things that I really love about his game that are truly elite would be as a route runner and his production. But there are some serious concerns on my side as far as I don't know if he's a 1. Like, what if he is a 2? A really elite 2? Like, think about like a Calvin Ridley, a Tyler Lockett, a Devonta Smith, because I think you're going to have a lot of Devonta Smith comps.
Yeah.
Where he can be very productive and but I'm just not sure that he's like a 1.
No, exactly. And I'm not sure if he's a 1. And I did say Devonta Smith. He's a perfect comp, in my opinion, for that. One thing I want to say, and I think he excelled better in the slot than outside. Because at USC, he was 75.5 out wide, 23 in the slot. In Pitt, he was 31 in 2021, 31.8 out wide, and 68 in the slot. And I just felt like when I watched this film back in 2021, it just felt a lot more smoother, a lot better. I liked the way he looked in the slot more, right? And I think what can happen here is that someone is going to draft him with the expectation of being the wide receiver 1, kind of what the Devonta Smith happened. And then when A.J. Brown came, Devonta Smith excelled, right? He's a top 10 wide receiver this year in fantasy. He was a guy that produced a lot and was consistent. And I think that's what I'm scared of happening. So maybe the first year for Jordan Addison won't be a fantasy production that we expect, but maybe the second year is where he could really excel and start saying, you know what? He knows his role. I think Devonta Smith knows he's not the number 1. He always knew he needed help, right? Just last year he needed help, and that was clear. And now he's so much better as a wide receiver too. So I like Jordan Addison. I think he does have the opportunity, and I think he could and will be a productive fantasy relevant player for any team. Just are they going to force him the number 1, or just say, you know what? Okay, we see the pathway. Let's bring in somebody else that's clearly the number 1 and be the number 2.
And like an Elite 2 is almost a 1 anyway, but you can't necessarily do it on yourself on the outside.
Exactly.
And, I've seen people compare him to like Justin Jefferson and like truly an elite player. I'm like, I don't know
about that.
Are you sure? Have you been watching?
Mm-hmm.
I do like him. I want to like him more, but I was let down by some of these areas.
We got 7 minutes here.
So what I'm thinking, because you and I have decided to make a who is your number 1 video. You and I have a debate that's coming up very soon that we're going to make a video about.
Correct.
Who is your number 1 in the class?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be happy to share who my number 1 is, but let's save the debate for that video.
Okay.
It'll be out on the channel soon. Make sure you're subscribed.
That's fair.
My number 1 is Jackson Smith in Jigba, and I am very excited to have a debate and be on his side and advocate for him. Your number 1 is
Quentin Johnson, for sure.
Quentin
TCU.
Johnston.
Hey, we're recording this the day of the national championship, right before.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does something special. But yeah, he is my number 1.
Can I tell you something though? I'm gonna advocate for Jackson, but the difference in their grade is 0.3.
Let me see.
So I love both of these guys, is what I'm trying to say.
0.4.
But I will.
0.4. Mine's 0.4.
Okay. Okay, so we both love these guys.
Yeah, we love them.
It is a very, very close between them.
Yeah, it is very close.
We will make a video here next week where we debate who is the number 1 wide receiver in the class.
I'm excited for
and
that.
You'll be able to see our takes. A long video. I hope you guys like this content. I hope you enjoy it. I think overall, there's a lot of players people don't know, and we just want to be able to share our thoughts, give you some insight, and then you can take that insight and run with it or see what you think about these players. Huge love for watching. Drop a like, subscribe if you like Dynasty content.
That's right, baby.
And let us know, should we do another series, like a running back version of this, a quarterback version of this, which we'd be happy to do. And I want to know who made it to the end. So if you made it to the end, I'm curious who made it to the end. So if you made it to the end, give me your Super Bowl winner this year. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Prediction in the comments below. All right, huge love. We'll see you soon. Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.